A writer writes, sits there with a pencil and paper, and then goes into a flow state, a magical place, and something brilliant happens. A couple weeks ago, I was writing a blog post, and as I was writing this blog post, it was about dreams and aspirations, I entered a flow state. And this was unlike anything I had ever experienced. Before, I had had experiences writing, and I loved what I was writing, and I loved the ideas that were happening, and I felt magic. But this was a true flow state. True flow state as in there was something flowing through me. It was actually so powerful that it moved me to tears. Usually when I write, I think of words, I think of ideas, I write them down, maybe I pause for a moment, but this was a completely different feeling flowing through me. I had struck gold. I had struck my soul. This was me feeling, on a conscious level, feeling my soul in real time. It reminded me of something Steven Spielberg actually describes here.
When I was in my early teens, I stayed up all night writing a screenplay and felt something to this day I swear I cannot get enough of. It was as close to the feeling of flying as I have ever had. When you're trying to get the words on paper and you're 3 thoughts ahead of yourself and it's a race to get it all down before it goes back to wherever that stuff originally comes from.
And so ever since then, I've been fascinated with this idea of coming in contact with this place, with this flow state. How do I get here more with my writing? How do we as artists, as writers, access this state more? How do we enter the zone? I'm thinking of it right now as a zone where genius writing occurs. Genius stories are created in real time. A zone where your soul takes over. And when I think about entering the zone, I think about some practices that I've had in the past and I still do, where I become present and attuned to my senses before I engage with my craft and my practice. I take deep breaths, I look at my hands, I look around me, I tune into what I'm seeing and what I'm smelling, what I'm feeling, what I'm tasting, all of these different things, and becoming truly present in the present moment and bringing my senses here. And I think that's what creativity is about. A lot of the process is sensitivity. It's about presence. It's about attention. And then how do you take this a step further with really entering the zone with your work, allowing the soul to take over in your writing? Well, when I think back to when I was writing that blog post, in that moment I was very open and alert. Open with the writing and the idea. Because I went in, it was a very intuitive blog post. I went in with an initial idea about what I wanted it to be about, and I had just gotten the idea like 5 minutes before. And I start writing right away, but it was very open because I didn't really have an outline. I didn't have a specific way that I wanted the blog post to look like. And so I was very open. I was very open for just allowing it to be anything. And I was alert intuitively. And I think alertness within the zone is super important, because when you intuitively feel something should go a different direction, you have to follow that. If you go in with a plan of this is how the story or scene or writing is going to go, but then as you're writing, your intuition calls you to take it in another direction, you need to listen to that because it's there for a reason. And so that's where alertness comes in. And I think it's the combination of openness and alertness that allows you to be open to any possibility of what the thing can be. And that will allow you to bring it to where it's meant to go, to its best version. And also, as I think about openness, I think about how I write music. For me, when I write music, I'm open to the melody or tune before I even go in my little studio. Actually, the only reason most of the time I go in to write music and work on music is because it starts when I'm called with a melody or with a tune. When I hear it, I'm open to the music and I act on that inspiration. It's my soul calling me to the craft, and I trust that timing. I'm open to that timing and to that melody, whatever it is that I hear. And so it's this openness and this alertness and ultimately this relationship with the soul, which makes me think about the reservoir of the soul. This is actually a terminology that I got from The Artist's Way, Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way. It's an incredible, fantastic book. It talks about the artist's journey and creativity and this spiritual framework about how God works through us in our work. It's absolutely amazing. I would recommend it for all of you guys to read. And she talks about this idea of the reservoir within, filling the reservoir and being conscious about the reservoir. And think about your reservoir. Your reservoir is where your soul pulls from in order to create your art. The reservoir is made up of memories, of experiences, of emotions, feelings. And for me, when I was writing that blog post, when I was in that flow state, my soul was pulling from my reservoir. And my reservoir was made up of my own memories and experiences with my own dreams and aspirations. But that was over months and years. That was my reservoir. And so ask yourself, what is the reservoir from which my soul pulls from? What are my memories and experiences? What are the stories that I write about? What are your inspirations? What is the art that you like? What is the art that your soul feels called towards? And I think the way that we can consciously cultivate our reservoir is by filling the reservoir, giving ourselves permission to live life, engaging in experiences that our soul calls us towards, and journaling about these things, writing about these things, developing a relationship with our reservoir, with our soul. And I think one of the best ways you can cultivate this reservoir and this soul relationship is through solitude, when you are just simply with yourself, when you reflect on your life in real time, reflect on your thoughts, on your emotions, and you come to know yourself in solitude. And this is why I'm huge on silence. In fact, silence is the reason why I feel called to make music a lot of the time. When I would act on the inspiration, on that melody that my soul would send me, it was because I was in silence. I would be in the car and I wouldn't be listening to music. I listen to music in the car, of course I do, but a lot of the times I don't. A lot of the times I'm in the silence, hour car ride, 2 hour car ride, and I just allow the silence to be there because I know that in silence, profundity is found. Ideas come if you allow them to. They're like waves, always coming. And it's just a matter if you're open to them, if you are alert enough. And when I'm silent, I hear a tune, I hear a melody, I get home, I go right to the laptop, I get that tune down, I get that music made. I allow myself to act on the idea that my soul sent me in the silence. We go fishing to catch a fish. We go to the bank to withdraw money. We go to silence to get an idea. I truly believe that. And I know it's difficult in today's world because everything is fighting for our attention. We have very low attention spans, and constant stimulation is a very common thing. But the difficulty of the ability to withdraw from those things is an indicator to how great the reward is on the other side. And that's why I believe overcoming the obstacle of staying in that silence speaks to a great glory, by coming in contact with the soul and hearing what the soul wants to send you. These things can be sent out of the zone. That's why you need to be alert. Because being and writing in the zone, when I was writing that blog post, I was there actively at my desk. I was here in the workspace. I was writing. But this physical space is not the only physical space where the zone will come in contact with me. Like I said, I'll be out driving, I'll hear a melody. I could be out grocery shopping, and there might be something that calls me towards. Things can happen out of the zone that are meant to pull me into the zone. Zoney zone, yeah, we're using zone a lot. But anyway, the point is, you don't know what's going to inspire you. That's why you have to stay alert, and if an idea comes while you're out and about in the world, you should write it down. The worst is when you forget a great idea. And I have found in my own experience, the more that I feed that relationship, the more I feed those ideas and inspiration that comes, the more active it is. Especially those really strong feelings you really have to trust. If you see something out in the world and it makes you think about something with your writing or with your story or with your art, and you start going into this rabbit hole of ideas and it feels really strong in that moment, that's a huge signal. That's a huge sign. You have to pay attention to that. Don't ignore that. That's your soul talking to you. Write that stuff down. Don't worry about the outcomes, just follow it because it feels right. It will spark your journey in the right way. And finally, the last point that I want to bring up is this idea of balance, of consistency. This is an interesting one because when you think about, at least the way I describe how I write music, I'm open to the idea, I'm open to the melody and tune coming in, and then I act on it. It sounds like I'm almost allowing, my work ethic is almost just on chance that the melody comes to me and then I come in, and so there's no set frequency. But I do believe that there is a balance of consistency needed in the process, one where you have a set frequency of when you'll show up, maybe an hour a day or 2 hours a day, writing in the studio, what have you, whatever you write, whatever your craft is. But also, I find that consistency is almost a byproduct of just being open throughout the entire day, not just an hour or 2 hours a day, but 24/7. Even in your sleep, I will wake up with an idea in my head and I'll need to act on it. I'll need to write it down. And you should too, if you wake up with an idea in your head. But when you stay open and when you stay alert, it is almost just guaranteed that ideas come in, and it creates its own consistency, creates its own frequency. Now, if you're only getting an idea every month or 2 months, then you have to ask yourself, are you really open? Are you really consciously staying open and alert for the signals? So it's that question, do I force it? Do I let it come? Again, I think it's balance, because for me, I do like to have my set frequency of when I show up and when I write, but just because I wrote for an hour in one day doesn't mean that I necessarily have to be done for the day. If a melody comes, if an idea comes, I will go and I will write. So this zone, how we can enter the zone more as writers, how we can create brilliant writing, I think is this very interesting flow state of a space. And I'm still exploring it myself as a writer, as an artist. But I know that there's activities that you can do, and activities and practices that I've done before to cultivate a relationship that feeds the zone, that calls you towards the zone, and allows the zone to exist outside of its own physical space. Ideas and signals are always coming. It's a matter if we are alert and if we are open to receiving them. Feed that reservoir, feed that relationship with your soul, and you will see all of this work for you in your own craft, in your own writing. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. I hope that something resonated in this video. If you want more exclusive videos, check out my Patreon. Also check out my blogs on my website. Everything's in the description, all the links. Subscribe to this channel for more videos like these, and I will see you guys in the next one. Dream on. God bless. Peace out.